Alright, so let's sew the sleeve. Start off, we're going to sew the underarm seam of it, and like the side seams of the model blouse, we're going to French seam it. Sew these at the same time. Don't do one sleeve all the way completion and then do the other one. If you sew them at the same time, you're more likely not to mess up, okay? Make sure you have a right sleeve and a left sleeve. Don't end up sewing two right sleeves or two left sleeves. So again, we're going to French seam this. It has 3/4 inch seam allowance, so we're going to put wrong sides together first and sew it at a 1/2 inch. All right, so again, wrong sides together first and sew it at a 1/2 inch. Make sure you're back tacking at the beginning and at the end of your seam. Now trim that seam down from a 1/2 inch to 1/8. Okay, press that seam flat and then press it to one side. Again, it doesn't matter which side. You can press it towards the front or the back of the sleeve. Just be consistent. So if you press it towards the back on the left sleeve, press it towards the back on the right sleeve. And just remember that you have directional notches on your sleeve. Okay, so in the arm well, or the well of it, you'll have one notch, and on the other one you'll have two notches. All right, so the one notch is your front, and the two notches is the back sleeve. All right, so once you've pressed the seam to one side, go ahead and bring right sides together. And then remember, like we did on the side seams or any French seam, bring that seam right out to the edge and press it flat. There we go. Okay, now the second row stitching we're going to do at 1/4 inch. Again, because we had 3/4 inch total. Our first row was at a 1/2 inch. We still have a quarter left, so our second row here is at 1/4 inch, equaling 3/4 inch. Now press the seam flat, and then press it to one side. And remember to be consistent. If you press it towards the back on the left sleeve, press it towards the back on the right sleeve. Now we're going to hem the sleeves. So we're going to stay stitch around the edge of the sleeve at 7/8 of an inch. Okay? And we're going to do this hem like we did in the, kind of like on the blouse, but also it'll be exactly like on the hem of the model skirt lining, okay? Where we stay stitched around and then we pressed up on the stay stitching and then pressed it again, okay? So at 7/8 of an inch, stay stitch all the way around the sleeve opening. Now, bring it to your ironing board and right on that stay stitching is your guide, flip it up. And then press it. And you'll do this all the way around the sleeve. Okay. Once it's pressed good and well, you're going to turn it up again. So bring that cut edge that you've just pressed up, turn it up so that that cut edge is right in a new crease. Okay. Make sure that you're not making it too big or too small. You don't want it to be bunchy in there, but you also don't want to be too big either. So that cut edge should be right down, touching the fold of this new turn that you're doing. Again, this is exactly how we did the hem of the skirt lining in the model skirt. The only difference here is that we have a much larger amount of sleeve we're turning up, or hem that we're turning up. We did a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch in the model skirt lining. Here we're doing 7/8. 7/8. All right, so that looks good. One more press here. Make sure you're pressing your seam allowance in the same direction as you pressed it in originally. And there it is, pressed up. So we're ready to stitch this down now. And right around the edge, okay, very close, about a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge that we folded up, we're going to stitch. All right, this is permanent, so back tack at the beginning and end. And just stitch all the way around. There we are. Okay, back tack that. And take it out. All right, so we're going to press it again, just to set it in, make it look nice. And this kind of larger hem gives the sleeve a little more body at the opening of it. You see it kind of holds its shape down there now. Okay, pull it right side out. See it? And then you should have a nice even row of stitching around the edge of it. So now let's put in our gathering stitches. Remember that we put in ease notches. All right, so there's the top of my cap notch that lines up with the shoulder seam. And on either side of that, we have our ease notches. This is just like on our sleeve demo that we did earlier this semester. Okay, the exact same way. So I'm going to start stitching an inch before my ease notch on my sleeve, and then I will stitch all the way around to my other ease notch and end an inch after that ease notch. Okay, do not get your ease notches confused with your directional notches. Remember, the directional notches are closer down in the well of the sleeve, and you have one in the front and two in the back. Your ease notches, they are closer to the cap of the sleeve or toward the shoulder notch, okay? And those, so you don't get those confused with your directional notches, okay? Do your first row of gathering stitches, make sure you extend your length, okay, to a gathering stitch length. Do your first row at a 1/2 inch, and then do your second row into the seam allowance at 1/8 of an inch.